How's it going, everybody? So this is Wolfgang von Latman Lizana. Y'all already know. Here wanting to interview my friend Jason Stroppa. Or is it Stroppa? Stroppa.
Come on, man.
It's Stroppa up in this. All right. I wanted to talk a little bit. I wanted to interview him about his experience. Basically, he had leukemia, pretty severe case, and he basically put his cancer into remission on a ketogenic diet. So without further ado, let's have Jason tell his story.
What's up, guys? So, rewind back to 2017. Basically, how I found out I had cancer was I was having some pretty fucked up symptoms. I was having like a lot of lethargy. I would like get up, walk 10 feet, and I would like my legs would be burning. Like I just did, a set of 15 squats, and I was having just some really weird symptoms. But me being a stubborn son of a bitch that I am, I was just kind of pushing through and just like, whatever. I just need, more food, more rest, whatever. And at the time, my diet was pretty abysmal. I was a lot bigger. I was probably at my biggest. I was over 400 pounds. So I was just having some really weird symptoms, and ended up finally like calling in to work. And took 2 days. Went to the doctor, got some bloods pulled. We were still waiting on those to come back, and I was actually going to work. I had my 2 days off. I was going to go into work that night, and my mom ended up convincing me to go to the ER. So I ended up going to the ER, and I kind of gave them some of my symptoms. They thought I was having like a heart issue, just from like the tachycardia and stuff like that. And so they immediately like snatched me up, took me in, ECG, like checking all that stuff. They pulled some initial bloods, and I was severely anemic. So if you guys know anything about hemoglobin, your hemoglobin, the reference range is in between like 13 and 18. Mine was like 4.5. So I was definitely not getting enough oxygen, circulating through my body. And I was, this is when I first got into private security, and I was working at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and that was like a 6-mile route. So I was walking like 6 miles a night while severely anemic. So
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't like looking back, and not just severely anemic, like being almost 400 pounds at that time.
Ooh,
so
man.
took a lot of energy to move all that weight
Damn.
around.
How did you survive?
That's a very good question. Honestly, if I would have waited probably like another day or two to go into the ER, like I might have died.
God kept you here for a real reason. Other people got hit like you got hit, but they weren't breathing. That's 50 Cent. Well, anyway, continue on.
So I end up going into the ER. They find out I'm severely anemic, and they're like, well, it could be one of two things. They were like, you could have a GI bleed. I was like, oh, that's pretty bad.
Damn.
So, or you could have leukemia, because they ended up finding blast cells in my blood too. So I was like, shit, fingers crossed, not cancer. But next day, I ended up getting my first bone marrow biopsy, and they confirmed the full name of what I had was acute B-cell Philadelphia negative lymphoblastic leukemia is like the full thing. So for semi-short, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, for short, ALL. So that's what I ended up getting diagnosed with. They immediately pulled a bunch of extra blood tests, making sure I didn't have any kind of infections or anything like that. Checked my liver to make sure my liver was healthy enough for chemo, and I started on chemo like literally within 3 days.
And when was this?
This was February 2017.
Okay, February 2017 started chemo.
Yeah.
And when you went in originally with the chemo symptoms, about what time was that?
Oh, with the initial symptoms?
Yeah.
I believe it was like February 9th or something like that.
So within,
I'd have to go back and look.
Wow, okay, so within about a span of 1 to 2 weeks you were diagnosed.
Like when did I start noticing initial symptoms?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it was kind of creeping up on me over a few weeks. I had noticed, and then from the time going into the ER to like starting chemo was like 2 or 3 days.
Wow, insane. Okay, continue.
So
got on chemo.
So yeah, started on chemo, and they also started me on super fucking high dose corticosteroids. I was on 170 milligrams of prednisone a day.
Wow.
And the reason for that is they use the corticosteroids as a direct chemotherapeutic agent for the lymphoma cells, since I did have lymphoblastic leukemia. So that's the reason for the corticosteroids. Side effects of corticosteroids are horrible. If you've never taken anything like prednisone, hydrocortisone, dexamethasone, they're absolutely fucking like, I would rather get chemo than be on like corticosteroids again. Like, I can
imagine.
They're awful.
So you're basically just pumping stress into your body, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, so I started treatment at 375. They put me on 170 mgs of pred a day, and in the first 30 days I dropped 30 pounds. So I went from like 375 to 345.
But I thought cortisol was a fat gain hormone. All right, continue.
Well, so I think honestly, I think some of that was recomp too. I think I definitely lost muscle, but I think I definitely put on some fat. But I was still at a net loss. Just I
absolutely.
Was so catabolic.
Absolutely.
So
sounds like a calorie deficit.
Yeah. So it's a fun little story I like to tell. Like, I literally could not keep weight on to save my fucking life. Like, I remember one day, and I know I've told you this before, but I remember one day I ate the 3 square meals they brought me at the hospital, and I'm pretty sure at that time I was like doubling up on meals. I was ordering like 2 breakfast, 2 lunch, 2 dinner, and then I remember like just laying in bed, and it was like 9 p.m. and I was just like, fuck. It was just unrelenting, just fucking hunger. Like, I had to eat something. So, favorite pizza joint, pick up the phone, call them, get a extra large all meat marble delivered, and I killed the entire fucking pizza. Which the pizza alone, not even counting like the meals that I had from the hospital, the pizza alone is probably like close to 10,000 calories. It's about this big around, and it's just like
10,000?
Close to it, yeah, like 9 or 10. Because I mean, it's
Michael Phelps diet, huh?
Yeah, so I mean, it's salami, linguiça, sausage, pepperoni, like just
making me hungry over here.
I know, right? so I killed that, and so I killed all the meals from the hospital and that whole pizza in one sitting, and I lost 3 pounds the next day because they were weighing me every day.
Wow, so sounds like a healthy lifestyle to me.
I know, right?
Holy crap!
Super healthy.
You're still losing weight?
So I was still losing weight.
Wow, but cortisol's supposed to make you, increase fat. What the hell?
I did get a gigantic fucking face. I was holding.
Got a bigger head, but a smaller body.
Yeah.
All right.
It was strange.
Wow, but and you were eating all those calories and still losing weight. Interesting.
Yeah, it's almost
so. Are you telling me that hormones play a role in fat loss?
I know, right? It's almost like hormones affect metabolism.
Wow, they affect energy expenditure that much. Wow.
Yeah, because I was sedentary too. I wasn't. I think I was doing a little bit of walking. But
so Thomas DeLauer is wrong? You mean cortisol doesn't? Wow. Okay.
I know, it's strange, right?
All right. So you're eating, damn asshole diet. Continue.
Yeah.
Basically.
Anyway, so I lost like 30 pounds that first month.
And versus food, okay.
Yeah, on the prednisone, and then they pulled the prednisone out, and my ghrelin metabolism was still super fucked up, but my metabolism tanked. So I was still really, really hungry, but my metabolism had tanked. So I ballooned back up to like 390, and all that muscle I put back on was fat.
And that was after?
That was after that first month. That was from
after the cortisol, when you got off the cortisol.
When they pulled the prednisone, I ballooned back up to 390. I was like super skinny fat. I had like no muscle.
My lord.
And so that went on for like a couple months because it was into February, March.
I would have liked to see
March, April, May, June.
Your cancer count, like the tests done on the leukemia. I would like to see how that was affected after the bounce back.
Yeah, I have. So I actually have all that. I just have to. I would need to pull it up because I don't think it's graphed out or anything. I'd have to go in through and like
Right.
pick out all the data. But,
Which he has graphs of certain parts of this
yeah,
that we can share later on his
So,
Instagram. Okay, continue.
So yeah, so anyway, and then so I ballooned back up, and it was about June 2017 that I was like, all right. I had gotten super skinny fat. Like I was like, fuck. I felt like shit. Combination of the diet and the chemo.
And you were 300 and how much pounds?
I was like 390.
And you say that's skinny fat? My ass, you're fat.
No,
Straight-
I'm saying skinny fat, like no muscle.
No muscle at all.
Yeah. Because all that weight I put back on after
Jesus.
they took me off the prednisone.
Yeah,
was
we
fat.
call that morbidly obese, but okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Maybe I'm misusing the
Right.
term skinny fat. I don't
You
know.
definitely are.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, skinny fat's like if I was like a twig, but I had like fat on my stomach, like visceral fat. All right, so June, you said I need to do something basically, right?
Yeah. So June, I was like, all right, this is definitely like, there's no way it's not affecting like my prognosis, like my outcome. So I was like, I need to get on top of this. So I initially hopped on a ketogenic diet as just purely as for weight loss. I had no idea about the research or the biochemistry behind it being a good adjunct therapy for especially glycolytic cancers like leukemia. So I hopped on as just a weight loss tool, and boy, did it come off. The first 50 pounds just fell off me in 9 weeks. It was like, without even really having to try. I wasn't really hungry. I was definitely not doing keto right, looking back, but...
What was your typical day of eating?
Probably, like, I was actually, it's funny, looking back, I was almost more carnivore at the beginning of my keto journey, and then I, like, as time went on, I brought in all these fruits and vegetables, like, not fruits, but vegetables and stuff, and leafy greens, and then now I'm back to carnivore. So initially, like, when I first started keto, it was just, like, basically eggs and ground turkey.
Ground turkey, and what type of ground turkey was it?
It was just like fucking like
Basic,
Foster Farms or whatever,
just like
from
the
the grocery store.
Basic Walmart brand almost.
Yeah, it wasn't anything fancy.
Okay, so he was getting a lot of omega-6s, probably not omega-3s at all, except for whatever's in the conventional eggs, and there's probably whatever hormones or antibiotics are allowed in poultry. So, and natural flavorings and stuff that are in that. So, like all of these things that a lot of these health experts claim are like, oh, you should avoid them, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was irrelevant because he was removing the main net negative of his fucking diet, which was probably the processed foods and the carbohydrates, and correcting a serious imbalance in probably his insulin levels and things.
Definitely.
So just on conventionally raised foods, he was able to do this. So continue.
Yeah, I'd like just to throw a caveat in there. That's definitely like if you want to optimize everything, you definitely want to go for grass-fed, pasture-raised, all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
But you can absolutely like reverse metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance on like shitty meat, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like, you can do dirty keto and that shit's still gonna work. Is it optimal for health and longevity and outcomes? Not necessarily. And performance, not necessarily. But if you're tight on money, like that's a big thing I want to get. If you're tight on money and you can only afford like say fucking turkey or chicken or conventionally raised beef, like that's still gonna be miles and miles better than eating fucking gobs of like processed food and rice and all that bullshit. If you're trying to reverse insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, you can do it on a budget. So
you don't have to buy all these fancy, more expensive things that are overall better for you in the first place and better for the environment, but you don't have to do that if your goal is very clear. Like, you're not seeking the nirvana of health, you're seeking, I have cancer, I'm overweight, I need to do something about it, you know? So
yeah, I started dieting down in June 2017, and I just kind of never stopped for like a year to a year and a half. I was just kind of in a constant state of caloric restriction. I'd have little cheats here and there, bounce myself out of ketosis, but other than that, I was pretty much like keto the entire time, pretty much in a caloric deficit for an extended period of time. And then within a month and a half or so of going keto, my blast cell count just went into the toilet, which is good because the blast cells are cancer. So like my my cancer went from being detectable with like kind of okay, you know, assay, like being peripherally detectable in my blood, to them using literally the most sensitive assay they have for leukemia, which is called MRD, minimum residual disease. It can pick up one cancer cell in 1 million healthy cells. That's the best technology that they have right now as far as detecting at least leukemia. And so my disease went from being detectable in peripheral blood to MRD negative from bone marrow. So, I mean, within a month and a half of going keto. So, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to promote any kind of, you know, I don't have any certifications that make me any kind of nutrition expert, though we could talk about how I feel about certifications. But that being said, I think pretty much everybody who is diagnosed with cancer should be on some form of low carb, like ketogenic diet, whether you're on a regular keto diet, whether you're on carnivore, like just as an adjunct therapy. There's tons of research out there to show that fasting, and fast too, like fast your ass off, guys. There's tons of research out there to show that fasting and ketogenic diets dramatically improve outcomes, like from a biochemical standpoint with cancer. When you're in ketosis, when you're fasted, there are metabolic pathways that get flipped in healthy cells and cancer cells. The healthy cells are protected from the chemotherapy to an extent, and it actually makes malignant cells more susceptible to that
apoptosis.
Yeah, it makes them more prone to apoptosis from the chemotherapy.
And there's quite a few mechanisms of action, both direct and indirectly, that work with your body's immune system and work against the cancer cells from thriving. And you could read a lot about it from, of course, Dom D'Agostino's work. You know, he's a leading researcher in that field. There's also a great book by Jeff Volok and Stephen Finney called The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living. And they talk a lot about the antioxidant effects of ketones and the reduction in reactive oxygen species and free radical damage as a result of less glycation, you know, less byproducts of carbohydrate metabolism.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff to look into.
And direct anti-inflammation effects too. Beta hydroxybutyrate is a direct NLRP3 inflammasome inhibitor. So there's a lot of research being done on ketogenic diets for like inflammatory diseases and things like that.
And it upregulates protein synthesis, both directly and indirectly.
Yeah.
Greater recycling of BCAAs in the blood. Leucine, it seems to upregulate plasma concentrations of leucine.
Yeah.
And it has a protein sparing effect too, less protein breakdown.
And I hesitate to say that it's going to raise your metabolism, because that's not technically true, but your insulin is so low that your metabolism is higher, right? Your metabolism actually, your metabolic rate actually goes down in the presence of insulin.
It has to, so gluconeogenesis is expends more energy, for one, and then the other thing is breaking down fat into ketones is another. So there are a lot of ways in which your body basically creates this like super immune machine. Yeah. Right. So anyway, as you were saying.
Yeah, so I mean, that's basically as far as that goes. I went into remission, and then...
and that was in July of 2017?
That was August. So August. I started like, I want to say mid-June, mid to late June, and then by August I was MRD negative.
And he was already on pharmaceutical interventions for months. Yeah. And they weren't having this substantial effect that the ketogenic diet just suddenly had.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, looking at my blast cell count, because I mean, technology is pretty cool. Like, you get bloods done at the doctor these days, and you know, it pops up on your phone, you can see everything. So if I'm remembering correctly, my blast cell count was basically like, it was very, very slowly going down, but then once I hopped on keto, I mean, it fell off. There was a pretty abrupt drop in blast cells, and
it had a very noticeable impact.
Yeah,
for sure.
So at that point, I had decided that I was living in the Bay Area at the time, Bay Area, California, and at that point I had decided that I was going to move out to Texas, and I came out here, and I was still on maintenance treatment for about 2 years, from September 2017 until I actually stopped a little bit early. I was supposed to go till September of this year. I was supposed to be on maintenance for 3 years, but I actually talked to my hematologist out here, and I was like, hey man, I'm like, if something's going to come back, it's going to come back. I was like, I don't really think 6 months makes that much of a difference as far as like stopping now versus stopping in September. I'm just dealing with a lot of toxicity at this point. So I went ahead and stopped. I've been off chemo since February now, and feeling great. I've noticed, I don't know if it's a hormetic bounce back like you were saying, but I think because I mean, I was on immunosuppression therapy for years, so it feels good to just kind of, especially now that I'm actually eating a proper diet. And we can talk about what I eat.
A proper diet,
Now we can talk about what I eat day to day now, but it feels so good. Like I feel the best I've ever felt. Being off the chemo, eating good, clean, whole animal food. Not exercising right now because all the gyms are closed, but
when he was exercising, in my opinion, it wasn't so intense. It was like a light bodybuilding program, lots of volume, not as much intensity.
Yeah, I don't do cardio.
That either. Clearly not.
Probably. I know I'm soggy, but
I'll get him into that eventually.
I do need to force myself to do cardio.
Some interval training with weights would be more up your alley.
Yeah.
But so right now, he's eating grass-fed, nose to tail carnivore, basically, right?
Yeah, as nose to tail as I can stomach. I can't do liver. I've tried, so I can't. It's really fresh liver is like a no-go for me, and same thing with like beef trimmings or suet. Like I tried to eat some beef trimmings the other day for the first time, and I was just like,
my recommendation.
His recommendation,
but he grilled the crap out of them though.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely not gonna eat them raw or like close to how you.
You should try eating it raw though, because it'll taste like butter almost.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because that was originally what he told me he wanted to do was raw, so maybe he'll like it that way.
I'll try maybe chop it up really fine, but so it's hard for me to get in like whole organ meat as far as like whole fresh organ meat, but I do desiccated liver. I do collagen powder. I do bone broth. Like basically my day-to-day meals are like a pound of grass-fed, grass-finished beef, a shit ton of bacon, probably about half pound to 3/4 pound of bacon. I like the bacon because it's extra fat without having to do the beef trimmings or anything like that, as well as a ton of extra sodium, ton of extra potassium, and because generally bacon shrinks a lot, it cooks a lot of moisture out of it. I'm getting a high density of calories, fat, and protein without a lot of actual volume of food because it gets so dehydrated by cooking. Right. So I can easily put back 2 pounds of meat when half of that is beef and half of that's bacon. 2 pounds of beef in a sitting is a stretch for me. I really like OMAD. I could probably do 2 pounds of red meat a day if I were splitting my meals up, but I mean...
And you cook the eggs in that, right? In the grease?
Yeah, so I have a big mason jar of bacon grease in my fridge. I got a bunch of grass-fed butter in my fridge. So usually what I'll do is I'll take my pan while it's clean. I'll fry my eggs up sunny side up, throw them in my little dish, and then I'll add to that desiccated beef liver. I recently went dairy-free, so now that I'm not doing dairy, my bone meal is my primary source of calcium, and then I'll add some collagen powder to that, and then I'll mix that all up, and then then I'll cook my beef. My bacon's in the oven this whole time getting cooked. Once my beef is done, I take that off, cut it up, and I basically just make a big slop, just this big, delicious, greasy, fucking, like, animal slop. Yeah. And then I have my bacon on the side, and, my one meal a day, I tallied everything up the other day for the first time in a while, so I haven't tracked my nutrition in, like, probably almost a year, but I tallied everything up. I'm sitting, my OMAD, like, my one meal a day maintenance right now, without any exercise, is 26 to 2,900 calories, depending on how much extra fat I add. And then I'm sitting right at about 200 grams of protein. It's like 230 to 250 grams of fat. Yeah. And like 8 grams of sodium. Yeah. Like all in one shot. Yeah. And
he's real big on Redmond's real salt because he knows what happens if he doesn't get enough fucking salt.
Yeah. In fact, I literally just ordered a couple weeks ago. I ordered a 10-pound bucket of Redmond real salt because I was tired of paying HEB way too much for it.
Yeah.
So.
And he eats pasture-raised eggs.
Oh yeah,
you know?
pastured eggs. I do. So this, we could talk about my little morning concoction
Coffee.
that I like to do on the weekends. I'm not doing it every day anymore.
But just to be clear, he's kept his cancer in remission this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So it went into remission in August of 2017.
Yeah.
And so now it's almost three entire years later, and he's eating all this meat. He originally put into remission on a meat-based diet, a conventionally raised meat-based diet, and he's kept it off. So, it's very obvious that it's not meat that's causing cancer things, right? Like,
oh man, I love vegan. Like I remember I got in an argument with that vegan. You remember that vegan that tried to tell me I was gonna get cancer and die? And
it's like you already did.
Yeah, already almost died.
Yep.
Yeah, pasture raised eggs. I think if you're gonna pick one thing, honestly, if you're gonna pick one thing to actually like pop for like the fancy shit on, I think you should buy pasture raised eggs, just because conventionally raised eggs they're pretty goddamn bad, honestly, as far as like, I don't know if you eat, I could be talking shit on your diet right now.
So I personally go for the flax-fed omega-3 eggs, and the brand that I buy,
That's right, we talked about it.
the brand that I buy, they have like a dedicated amount of pasture that they're certified to be, and there's third-party certifications that go in, every couple months to make sure that it is what it says on the label.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I do that is because it is pasture raised, so it's getting the bugs and the sun and everything, but it's certified to have omega-3 from the flax.
Yeah.
So whereas pastured eggs, they're probably getting more nutrients from the bugs and things, but it's not like, you don't know for sure how much omega-3 and the other nutrients you're getting.
Right.
So I like it just because it's more comfortable. I'm more comfortable knowing that it's certified to be that way.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Mine are $2 where I buy it per dozen, whereas the pastured eggs are about $3, $3.50 a dozen. So.
Yeah.
But he's right though. There's more nutrition in it. But keep in mind, it's not like you have to worry about getting cancer from conventional eggs.
Yeah. Buy. My big thing on eggs is like buy the best eggs you can actually afford. If you want to go to like a farmer's market, you can pick up pastured eggs fairly cheap there. But the big thing for me with the pastured eggs is versus conventional eggs is like the chickens are just so much healthier with the pasture raised stuff. You don't really have to worry about any like salmonella or anything like that when you buy pasture raised eggs. I've been eating raw eggs. There's 4 raw eggs in this coffee. I blend it in almost every day. Yeah. I've been eating raw eggs, and I know this guy scarfs down some raw eggs for the last year for me?
For me, it's been like 4 years or more.
Have you ever gotten sick?
No. Nope. One time I thought that I did from salmonella, but it was actually the MCT oil I put in with my coffee. So
you had a little bit too much?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
disaster
bad.
Pants?
Yep. But never from raw eggs. And I personally, what I think is human beings have been eating rotten meat and stuff like that for like millions of years. It's a traditional food. That's where, we see guts straight out of a bison intestine. And so for me, what I think is it's mostly cooked food, because if you don't prepare it right or you leave it out for a long time, it produces bacteria that is not we're not used to dealing with.
I think there's two primary. I think there's two primary contributors to like food poisoning. Yeah. I think the first one is low stomach acid. Yeah. Just from all the bullshit people eat, and everybody's. It's funny, man. People get like GERD, they get acid reflux, and they never think about, maybe it's my diet. They're just like, boom, proton pump inhibitor. Right. I need fucking not Plavix. It's Prilosec. I need Prilosec OTC, or they're crunching down Tums.
Which I've had a client who was like 80 years old, and he was on proton pump inhibitors, blood pressure medications, and everything. And I had helped him get off of his proton pump inhibitor with apple cider vinegar and eating more meat. Yeah. People don't realize they're drinking the carbonated waters, they're doing the high-carb diet, and they're not giving their body a reason to produce pepsin and stomach acid.
They actually don't, they're just not producing enough acidity in their stomach to actually kill a lot of those microbes that are making you sick. So. Right. And then the other one is obviously just sick animals. Like,
Yeah.
if you're buying very, very cheap stuff and you're not cooking it well, like the whole cook your ground beef to 165 degrees, cook your chicken to 170
That's
degrees.
to compensate for the unhealthy environment.
Yeah, for the all the bullshit that the animals have because they're kept in such an unhealthy environment. They're not raised properly and naturally.
And
so.
they're fed grains. They're herbivorous animals. Yeah. They're herbivorous animals that are fed grains, and the entire reason why they get sick is mostly because of the grains that they're fed.
Yeah, the ruminants are herbivorous, but chickens being fed grains, guys, chickens are fucking carnivores.
I'd say they're like omnivorous.
I mean, they'll pretty much eat anything.
That's
but
true.
If you just let them out on pasture, they're eating bugs, they're eating worms, they're eating all kinds of good crunchy little critters.
Absolutely.
And that's why, like, when you get a good pastured egg, you see such a huge difference. Mainly, the first thing you'll notice is the color, all those carotenoids in there.
Yeah.
Because they're just getting so much good nutrition from being on pasture. Then you look at a conventionally raised egg, you know, those chickens are stuffed full of, you know, corn and soy.
Now, I will say that, you know, as far as salmonella poisoning is concerned, the main difference between conventional is that the shell, like, they take off the protective outer layer, whereas, like, in certain countries they actually serve eggs like room temperature because they don't
store them.
They don't pressure wash the protective layer off.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course, like, the chickens they're crapping on each other and stuff in confinement. I think that's like the big thing because most of the salmonella is not inside the egg; it's on the shell.
Yeah.
And so
it can be inside the egg though. The chicken can actually have that in their ovary, and they can, when they form the egg, the salmonella can get actually trapped inside the egg.
So maybe so I mean, I've heard the main concern is on the outside of the egg, but, you know, regardless, you probably want to be buying, you know, some form of, like, you know, pastured or free range type of egg. The brown eggs, I feel, are safer. I believe that the outer casing is safer.
I think that's a marketing fucking issue.
Yeah, well,
it's brown, it's more natural.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it's a hit or miss, you know. But I'll say that I have actually eaten a lot of raw eggs that were white and they were like the conventional eggs, and I have been fine. I don't recommend that to most people. Obviously, I'm like healthy as shit, but so with the raw eggs, for sure, that's a huge
I don't even
thing.
know why we're making such a big deal out of this. Most people aren't even going to eat raw eggs.
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of the minority.
I don't feel like it's that big of a deal to really even, you know, but
maybe in the carnivore community, I feel like more people eat raw eggs.
Well, I have videos on this, and we'll make more videos in the future about that, so yeah, he loves his pastured eggs, clearly, you know. Definitely. So what are some other things you'd like to tell people, especially about cancer and your experience and things?
Keep yourself healthy so you don't fucking get it. That's the big thing. Honestly, like, I don't know. I feel like it was a positive experience for me, just because it forced me to reevaluate everything about my life. That being said, I don't wish it on anybody. It's a very, very shitty experience, and most people, honestly, even though I was severely unhealthy, I think I'm just like, I hate to toot my own horn, but I'm just a tough enough son of a bitch that I made it through without being like
broken down.
Yeah, without just being broken. You know what I mean? That's so many people come out the other side of chemo and they're just like, their bodies are broken. They don't work right. And I made myself a promise when I decided to start, like that June when I started dieting down. I was like, I'm gonna come out the other side of this healthier than I went in.
And that definitely happened.
Yeah.
Because in order for you to actually do something like put cancer into remission, you've got to make some kind of change to become healthier than you were.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason why you got in the first place because you were unhealthy.
Yep.
And of course, in modern medicine, there's this big push for, you know, it's genetics. It's just like a coincidence type of thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, genetics will determine your likelihood of getting different things. Like, you may be way more likely to get cancer, way more likely to get heart disease or whatever. But like, at the end of the day, like, if you're a good steward of your health, the chances that you're gonna get something like that are so ridiculously low that I mean, I wouldn't even worry about it.
If you're armed with the right health information, you know, and you don't think margarine healthy, and you don't think these other things are healthy, and you know what you're doing, and you're actually following a healthy diet, then you can have great results regardless of your genetics,
Yeah.
And, the main thing is people, they say genetics, even doctors, and you question them, you ask them, what is it about genetics that create that environment? And a lot of times they won't even really have an answer. They don't understand, it's polymorphisms, certain enzymes required for converting certain nutrients. Even things like cholesterol metabolism can be changed by polymorphisms. And even further is the fact that we do have a lot of evidence. We have Pottinger's cats, which is like a interesting experiment. We have Weston Price's information. Lots of other, actual studies done on twins, where you can actually see over generations different nutrient intakes of your parents and your parents' parents can actually affect the sperm and the egg that becomes their children over time.
Body composition too. I don't know if you're aware of that. So they did a study where they took a bunch of obese dudes and they basically evaluated obese dudes.
Yeah.
They took a bunch of obese dudes and they evaluated the quality of their sperm as far as motility and number, quality, stuff like that. And they were like horrible. And then they basically got them to lose a bunch of weight, and they went back and they checked, and they were like perfectly healthy, normal, great motility, great sperm count. Like, so epigenetics is a thing, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and sperm quality can mean many different things, but basically most of the things that seem to hinder the quality of sperm, they tend to also increase the likelihood of genetic defects, things like drugs and alcohol during the womb, and even things like nutrient deficiencies. That's the whole reason behind this whole fortification with folate.
Yeah.
Well,
not just folate, iron and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like, you ever go to the grocery store and pick up one of these, like, even the healthy cereals, and look at the label? Like, it's gonna be fortified to shit. Not that you can actually absorb any of those nutrients, but they have to add folate and iron and all this garbage to actually give it some nutrient value, because otherwise it would just be fucking
sugar,
crunchy cardboard and sugar.
Yeah, it's fortified sugar, and it's been a thing forever. And you read the book The Case Against Sugar for a good example of why that is, and why they put heart healthy on the label or something like that. So mindset's obviously a really huge thing when it comes to reversing a disease, because most people, they believe they're doomed to their genetics. Most people, they don't believe they can. And to make matters worse, the people that they trust with their health, and they think, oh, they have all these degrees and things, which is a good thing, obviously. They think that they know everything already, and so if they say, oh no, the ketogenic diet's bad for you, is usually what they'll say. What about your cholesterol? You'll have a heart attack on chemo,
Yeah.
Like, that makes it incredibly challenging for somebody to do something like what Jason did, because you're scared, you feel helpless, and then the people you trust, they don't even have any information that can help you in the first place. Diet and nutrition and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're at an extreme disadvantage, and so you have to overcome so much adversity with that.
Yeah. I've got speaking of cholesterol and stuff, I've got a fun anecdote. So back when I first got on keto, back in June, I think it was either like June or July, and I was on not hydrocodone, but hydrocortisone at the time, and which is another synthetic corticosteroid. And so my triglycerides at that time, because I was on a medication, I was on the hydrocortisol, and then I was also on a medication called pegosparaginase, which is chemo, and that jacks your triglycerides up. So my triglycerides at one point were like 1,100.
Damn.
They were over 1,000 at one point.
That sounds deadly.
Yeah, I mean, hypertriglyceridemia is
and that was
not
caused
good.
by the chemo drug.
A lot of that, yeah, the chemo and the corticosteroids, but they were looking at that. And trying to tell me that it was keto that was causing that.
Wow, your high-fat diet. Right?
So, me being
never read a study about low-carb diets, apparently.
Me being the contrarian that I am, I pulled up like 2 or 3 papers from PubMed and forwarded it, because I had my oncologist, and then I also had an RD that was on my. She's the one that was telling me that my registered dietitian was the one that was telling me that keto is causing my hypertriglyceridemia.
Oh my God.
And so I forwarded those papers to them, and they left me alone after that. Pretty much.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The interesting thing is you'll send them papers usually, and they'll still stand with their original statement. It's a crazy thing when you have like a degree and all this stuff, or even the people who just they watch information from people like Lane Norton and Greg Doucette. And they're like, oh, they have degrees, and they sound convincing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're an idiot if you disagree with them.
And then fast forward a couple years, I lost a bunch more weight, and you know, weight training 3 to 4 days a week, and my triglycerides were in the 30s.
So talk about like what your health is now.
My health now, I think is pretty damn good. I still have some fat to lose. I mean, I'm sitting at probably like 24-25% body fat right now,
which you can't even really even tell with the shirt on.
It's all right here, guys. It's all in the torso.
Yeah.
My arms are pretty damn lean. But yeah,
he's really into body composition and stuff like that.
I really like. I don't necessarily have like body weight goals. I have body composition goals. So my thing is like I need to be under 15% body fat. So however I get there, it doesn't really matter to me necessarily what weight I am, as long as I have an appreciable amount of muscle, and because that is obviously, we know that impacts insulin sensitivity and things like that, and obviously just going about day-to-day life, like I want to be able to pick shit up. So I need to have an appreciable amount of muscle, and I need to have, you know, a reasonable body fat percentage, which to me, reasonable body fat for a man is under 15%. For optimal health, probably between 10 and 15%.
Yeah.
Once you dip under 10%, you start getting down into like bodybuilding percentages. Like, it's not healthy to be that low body fat percentage. Like, yeah, you can be 3% body fat, true 3% underwater, but your fucking immune system is garbage.
Yeah.
So that's purely for aesthetics.
And what I found in many other people, and obviously myself, is that when you follow a diet like this, where it's low carb, but you eat enough protein and whatnot, basically you'll lose weight and lose weight and lose weight, and more so lose body fat, because you'll also gain a lot of muscle compared to other type of protocols without even restricting calories most of the time. And you find that eventually you hit a tip-off point where you remain healthy, like at a healthy weight, and it's just like a natural weight that you'll generally see hunter-gatherers at and stuff like that. And so your body like kind of already knows where to go.
Yeah.
You know, even though you're eating a pretty damn lean diet, basically, you can even be calorically restricted, you're gonna have to really try to go under that threshold.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing about keto is it almost like rejuvenates your body's natural tendencies to eat healthy amounts of food. I would say.
I think that, and that's kind of where I'm at now, is like my body really wants to stick at like 200. I have to really fucking eat a lot to get like into the 210s, you know what I mean? And then I have to really, really like deprive myself to get into like 190, 180 area. So my body is really, really happy at 200. So at this point, my plan is to just basically recomp for the next 3 to 5 years, and like basically just
be the next Dorian Yates.
No. I'm not gonna be 260 on stage. That's a little bit much.
But basically, once this pandemic coronavirus thing is over and the gyms open up, he's going to be hitting the gym hard, and he's going to be gaining muscle and chasing those goals more vigorously.
Yeah.
And we'll really see what this diet can do for him. 200
pounds with abs is the goal.
Oh, you can get there.
I've never had abs in my fucking life.
Oh, you'll get there.
But
I didn't have abs till I started on a paleo type diet. When I went from veganism to paleo, it was like I was skinny fat when I was vegan for a year and horribly lethargic. And then I just went paleo, and within a month, I didn't even know how to weight train properly at the time, and I got abs. I started looking buff. It was like, whoa, and I wasn't even restricting carbs. I was eating bananas and stuff. So now I'm on keto, and I've maintained abs like since I started. And what do you think was the cause of your, cancer? Why do you think that this worked?
Oh, the cause of like why I got cancer in the first place? Just being super unhealthy, being super insulin resistant. I actually, honestly, I probably wasn't even that I wasn't even considered diabetic at that time. At over 400 pounds, my hemoglobin A1C was not even over 6. So this goes to show that there's an amazing amount of variability as far as like personal fat thresholds and resistance to diabetes, so to speak, because my blood glucose wasn't even really that out of whack, but I guarantee I was severely insulin resistant.
And the big difference here is measuring insulin sensitivity with a fasting insulin test, versus measuring glucose with a fasting glucose tolerance test. And the reason why that's important is because you don't have problems with blood sugar until years after having insulin sensitivity issues. And so you may have all the symptoms of diabetes even, or more so insulin resistance like obesity, and even maybe like lessened vision problems and stuff like that, peeing all the time. You could have symptoms of diabetes but not know it because your physician is measuring the wrong thing. And so what he's saying is he could have been insulin resistant all this time, and he probably was.
I guarantee I was insulin resistant.
It's very hard to be that overweight and not have insulin problems. Because what got you there in the first place, at the very least, is eating all the foods that cause diabetes to begin with.
Oh my god, dude, I was a fucking garbage disposal, man. Like, I look back and I'm like, fuck, there's no wonder I was a fat piece of shit.
Talk about your diet and lifestyle at that time.
So, I mean,
in detail.
Yeah, so it was basically just like, I didn't give a shit. Like, I ate like most people in their 20s, but my biggest thing is like, I'm a bottomless pit. Like, especially with stuff that's like low satiety, like lower protein shit like pizza and stuff like that. Most of the trigger foods that people eat, and because that's the biggest thing is like most of the processed food that people eat is very low protein. So it's really not that satiating. But I mean, I would just, and then when I turned 21, I started drinking really heavy, and that contributed a lot to a lot of that weight gain.
Oh yeah.
And then the combination of like, because you go get drunk, and then you get the drunchies, and you're like, what do I want? I want 2 fucking carnitas super burritos. That's what
I've never been drunk in my life. But
You've never been drunk?
I partied with friends, a group of friends who all got drunk, and they had my cousin John Riley like pay for all their food. And I've seen it. They go to Taco Bell and they get this most disgusting food ever.
I'm gonna get this dude drunk tonight.
No, it's impossible. You'd have to literally force me to do so.
You're gonna at least do you drink at all?
So every now and then.
You wanna try some of that scotch I just got?
Actually, that's an interesting. Yeah, okay, fucker. All right, I'll try a little bit though, not
3
much.
3 hours later, fucking Wolfgang's doing like drunken cartwheels on the lawn.
I've never been susceptible to peer pressure, even by good friends of mine ever. So, But anyway, as you're saying, you got the drunk cheese and ate a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, you just eat, like, you get drunk and you just eat a bunch of shitty food, and like I've always been.
Say like a day of eating for you, a typical day of eating at that time.
Honestly, like it's funny because I more remember like my drunken episodes of eating than I remember like my day-to-day diet.
Probably because they were more entertaining.
Yeah, so like I would either go get I would go to La Victoria Taqueria, which is like right next door to the bar. Genius business move, by the way.
Yeah.
And I would get like 1 to 2 carnitas super burritos, which were like this big. Or I would, if I didn't go there, I would stop at Jack in the Box on the way home. Drunk as fuck. Don't drink and drive, kids. That's another.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I had very little concern for my own well-being at that point in time. But I'd stop at Jack in the Box, and the little value meal $1 chicken sandwiches?
Yeah.
I'd smash like 6 of them motherfuckers. Like in one sitting, I'd just be drunk as fuck and just be like, rum, 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 rum.
And so, one thing to note is that everything you just mentioned had meat in it. But it's not the same eating pattern as the meat-based diet he eats now.
Yeah, no. You get rid of all it ain't the meat, it's what you're eating with the meat.
Because he was a meat eater that got cancer, and then he was a meat eater that reversed it, so... it should be obvious to people. This blew my mind wide open when I realized this. It's crazy how, people like vegan gains are like, oh no, it's the meat, blah, blah, blah. It's the saturated fat. Like, this meta-analysis, like, wow, guy. Like, they're so convinced.
Did you see that video where Vegan Gains was like, oh, I've been feeling really lethargic lately, and I started B12 shots, and it's helping a little bit. Like, really, I wonder why. Like, maybe you should just eat a fucking steak, and then you wouldn't need to pin yourself with B12.
I mean, I've made videos where I broke down a lot of, the studies he uses, and some of his videos where I had a video compilation of every single time he said something like that, where he's gotten on the toilet and he threw out his back in a video vlog.
He threw out his back sitting on the toilet?
Yeah! Yeah! And he dislocated his knees, claims it's not the
God.
diet, which maybe it's not. But the main thing is he's always talking about lethargy, depression, it's not the diet, and this and that. I was abused as a child, and this and that.
Yeah.
No
wonder he's so missing the problem.
We're going to have to make a breakdown video where we video these things, because, clearly there's something wrong with that.
So is there anything else?
Basically, insulin resistance was probably what you think might have caused it.
Yeah.
Probably glycation.
Excess alcohol, the super shitty immune system that I had, because at that time too, like I was getting sick. I remember getting sick a lot too, especially before when I was a smoker. I stopped getting sick as much when I quit smoking, but man, when I was smoking, I felt like I was getting some kind of upper respiratory infection like every month and a half.
Absolutely.
And being really heavy, and drinking like a fish, and eating like an asshole. So.
And that describes, the majority of Americans in general. That's like the societal norm.
Yeah.
So you have anything else you want to say?
Guys, I guess I'll just give myself a plug if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's what I want.
Yeah, if you guys want to, follow me, you can find me on Instagram at LeukemiaSlayer, all lowercase, all one word.
We'll put it in the description for you guys.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description for you, but it's kind of been mostly nutrition, fitness, stuff like that, but I throw in some fun stuff, knives, guns, stuff like that.
He lives a really awesome life now that doesn't involve suffering.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to find him constantly talking about cancer on there. But, whatever he posts is great, obviously.
Yeah, it's just the name of my Instagram is more so just kind of to be an eye catcher. For people to be like, whoa, that's, LeukemiaSlayer, that's kind of a cool name. Then they're going to click on my page and see all the good content I'm putting out.
And it's cool if people ask you questions?
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys have any kind of questions or anything that you want to ask me, comment on a post if the question's related to the post, or slide into my DMs, hit me up, and I'll do my best to answer any questions for you. I promise you, if I don't know the answer, I can find it out for you. So he's
really into biochemistry and all the science behind it and everything. That's actually how we met, actually.
Endocrinology is something I've been really, really interested in the last year or so.